Hey, what's up, everybody? It's 1:30 in the morning, and my crackhead ass was like, hey, it'd be really cool to break down a 4-year-old song from League of Legends called KDA's Pop Stars. I looked around on YouTube, and I really didn't find that many videos talking about specific techniques and stuff that happened in this video, and albeit I have definitely seen this video more than enough times, I felt like it would still be worth going over as a breakdown, even if I'm not reacting to it. So I'm just gonna go through this video on my own here to show all of you certain spots and aspects and little tricks and stuff that they did visually that I think are really cool, but very underspoken. So let's go give some praise to a very well animated music video, shall we? Let's go. So the first part I want to talk about is a part that you might not have even noticed during your watch of this video, and obviously if you haven't watched it yet, go watch it. What are you doing here on a breakdown if you haven't seen this video yet? The reveal of this character using just lighting is brilliant. It's not like a big thing, but like in this frame, these two, you can see her. Like it's right there as the first one, she just appears. And then there's this kind of like slow, like you could see her silhouette there. That's just the light coming in from these windows here, showing more of the body. And it's just a super subtle, but really, really intelligent transition to show that there's a character there. And of course, I'm not going to mention this more than just this one time, but there are plenty of moments in this video where the music and the video itself, certain things happening on screen are timed with the song, and that's just really cool in general. But also a much more subtle thing that's actually a post-processing thing is throughout this video, there is a very, very light film grain over everything. It ties the whole picture together, and while it is a composition thing, not so much an animation thing, I thought that that was worth mentioning purely because it is such a massive assistant in keeping all of the visual differences and distinctions in every scene in this video tied down and feeling like it's together. You can color grade and color correct all you want to, but that film grain, that subtle little detail, pulls everything into one solid cohesive layer, and it is very important. So the next thing is this character here. Obviously you see her in the video. If I were to just play a few seconds of this, she's kind of bouncing, and that's all fine and good, but I wanted to talk specifically about how while she is bouncing to the song, as we mentioned, a lot of things kind of move in time with the video here. The part that's interesting to me is not only that the actual character is bouncing with it, but the train around her is bouncing with it as well. Her weight is shifting on the pelvis. And that is a super, again, it's subtle. I'm going to have to play this through one time and it's going to sound weird. Watch her butt. You'll see what I mean. I'll go back and kind of show you exactly where the swivel's happening, but it is a really cool minor detail to show a body moving to a beat and keeping it in a rhythm. But I'll focus here on the biggest part of it that happens during the video, which is this first big one where she just drops it like it's hot. This is the most exaggerated one, which is why I'm using it as an example. But when she drops her hip, it goes from about here to about here, which isn't that big of a drop if you're talking about like the general movement of the body, but in the ricochet of being in that car with it also kind of rocking to the beat, it makes that adjustment that much more impressive. Like, of course, she's bobbing her head. That's the obvious one. Using the character's in-world weight in order to adjust for that is just insanely smart. The fact that they're able to grab that and go, hey, let us actually utilize the physics in-world and make it feel more real. Make it feel like she's actually writing. That is such a small detail. They did not have to go that far, but they did. While we're on this scene here, I'm also going to mention this transition. This is a classic transition, but this zoom out and then the continuation after a match cut. Match cuts are basically exactly what it says in the name. They are two separate cuts matched together, perfectly aligned in some way, shape, or form, be it movement or placement of objects in the scene, sometimes both. That helps sell this sort of concept that there is one fluid movement, even if they are completely unique shots. Another thing to mention while we're on this shot too is the secondary action of this character's those little things. I don't know what you would call these. They're weapons of some sort. I don't know what they actually count as in the context of the game. I assume there's some sort of magical ethereal weapon, but they have a secondary animation. And if you don't know what secondary animation is, it's basically secondary animation. You have a character doing a main movement like turning their head, and the secondary animation would be the hair following the head after the main movement of the skull. So this is happening in these little weapons here, which is super cool. You can kind of see them bounce. I'll just play this for a second so you can see what I mean. I'll go back a little bit, but you can see them kind of bouncing behind her. And it's just a small detail, yet again, to sell the movement and life of the shot here. You see how they're kind of bouncing back and forth. They've kind of got this rhythm to it, and that is super useful in order to make things feel alive. If you don't have secondary movement, most of the time characters feel dead or dull, and you feel like there should be something else happening because your brain is expecting it to be, because physics exist in the real world, and that's exactly what we're anticipating when we watch animation. This is less of an animation thing and more of an overall compositional thing. This shot is sick as hell. I loved the light that is just encapsulating the character coming in from behind and overshadowing her and bringing in this beautiful rim silhouette. We talked about the silhouette in the prior video that I uploaded, and it's just, there's so much going on here. You can see the difference in the shading between the light coming over the body here that's cascading and making it a little bit more white and washed out versus this huge upper, more forefront element of her arm that makes the whole shot feel bigger just doing that. The fact that, of course, her glasses are very bright and vibrant, that's a character trait they carry through the whole video. It's not necessarily unique to this shot, but it helps sell the scale. Not larger than life, maybe, but larger than light is still pretty darn big. This is not an animation thing, but I just wanted to point this out. Why is she about to wash solid metal? Question mark? Hi, I moved my microphone because I was tired of having to lean over to talk into it, so it's here now. The expression, which I think is one of the better examples of an expression in a shot like this, where she's breathing in, you see the chest lift, which is very, very uncommon for people to do for some reason, and they should, because when you breathe, your chest expands, your chest goes up, the chest moves. And that is just one of those minor details that usually people would step by and just go, I don't need to worry about it. But they did it here. I don't know if it was to make the breast pop. I'll leave that up to the horny teenagers at home. But either way, it is a very good physics thing to do. Biologically, it makes sense, and physically, it makes sense. But this expression is what I wanted to focus on here. How she turns her eyes and she's not looking at the camera. She's all looking way at the shit down here. Like, what are you looking at, girl? But that's so natural because you wouldn't immediately lock on to anyone shooting you or looking at you. You would dart and then kind of land your eyes and lock on at a point like she does here. It's this sort of like eye direction that I love to see when people lead with the eyes. I mentioned that in a prior video too. Leading a direction with the eyes, having the eyes go before the head, and having that physical body motion follow the eyes is a very, very common thing that everybody does, but nobody really thinks about. So when they think about it for animation and they spend that extra couple of minutes to get that nailed down, it always makes everything feel more real. I always thought that this was cool too. This isn't something that I'm going to focus on too much about, but I love this dragon and how it's on every single separate individual thing. They basically just projected it onto this shot and then let it line up. And that's something that even video games have done for like special things. Arkham Asylum, I believe, did this for some of the Riddler stuff. It's a very interesting thing to do, to line up patterns and parallels and make them into a specific item or design. But I love it when they do it. And this one's just super neat because they transition from that thin outline into a full color. So it's just a really nice transition into this next shot here that we see has just the dragon fade into the background, nothing really more about it, but it was such a smooth transition to have. They didn't have to make any other movements, no other cuts. You forget that she's there because you're following with this match cut and the dragon. Just like I mentioned earlier, match cuts seem to be used a lot in this video, probably because they're extremely easy to match to beats. This sequence, I have a lot to talk about, even though I feel like a lot of people have talked about it. Of course, the mask, trying to even loosely match the lip syncing, is a super clever visual idea. I love that in shots like this too, they're starting to show more details about these scrapes that are constantly appearing as the camera goes back, and these kunai that are just kind of sticking out everywhere like they just had a major battle in this. But this shot here being completely free of those. They don't exist. There's no kunai on the walls. Like, those little texture details, those characters to the background, make everything subconsciously tie together. Like, are we talking about a two sides of the same coin kind of vibe here, because one of them is torn up, ripped to shreds, and the other isn't? It's more just vandalized with graffiti. Here we have another really cool transition that's just like a fast whirl transition, just a speed blur, but it whirls out to the washing machine, which is a simple one to make, but is super cool. And of course, it then reveals Thigh Gap McGee. And Thigh Gap McGee here has her own little cool thing that she does with her snap of the fingers. She actually distorts the universe. I love how she makes this background warp, whereas she stays the same. This is kind of a similar idea to the dolly zoom that I had mentioned a few videos ago. It's just a really cool, like, perspective warp thing that just makes everything go, it just makes you lunge a little bit. This is another part that I feel like just really doesn't get much attention here. This is probably one of the last points I'm going to mention. But this little light trail that you see coming off the end here, I want you to watch, if you have never before seen where that's going, and see what it's following. Because it is following the line of the thigh and leg. Like, she had just ridden up this character model. I always thought it was cool to have those lines following the character's silhouette, because it is such an important thing to have a silhouette visible, and having it visible like this keeps it visible for longer and farther as the camera pans back away from it. And yeah, that's more or less it. That's about all I had to say about that one. There's plenty more I could talk about, but I don't want to overstate too many things. I'll probably do more of these where I look at videos that I've already seen and break down the more interesting, unsung little hero moments that I find in these visuals, because I feel like a lot of them have a lot of stories to tell, and nobody really thinks about a lot of those technical aspects. So if you like me doing this sort of thing to videos I already know and just kind of nixing the whole reaction part of it, let me know. And I'm still bad at this whole outro thing, so if 3 recordings later, here I am. Bye. See you later. Goodbye.